How did the insult thing start?
Well, to condense it, to be very honest, the insult thing started out of lack of having an act. And suddenly I leaned down and said, "Sir, I'm getting fed up."
Don Rickles, Hollywood's merchant of venom. For decades, he roasted legends like Sinatra, Carson, and countless A-listers with his razor-sharp tongue. Everyone thought he hated everyone equally. But behind the laughter, there was one man he truly despised. A grudge so deep, so personal, that it wasn't a joke. Tonight, we uncover the shocking truth about the person Don Rickles truly hated more than anyone in Hollywood. Don Rickles was more than a comedian. He was a phenomenon. Known as the Merchant of Venom, he carved a niche in Hollywood by delivering lightning-fast, blistering insults that could leave even the thickest-skinned stars reeling. From nightclub stages to television appearances, Rickles' brand of comedy seemed fearless. He poked fun at everyone. Sinatra, Carson, Martin, even presidents. But what many didn't realize was that behind this onstage persona lay a man who carefully chose his targets, and a man who could feel real disdain. Unlike his public quips, which were meant to entertain, his personal grudges were rare, targeted, and unyielding. The public often assumed that Rickles hated everyone equally. After all, he insulted every star that walked onto a stage or set. Yet, for most of his career, those were just jokes. Colleagues who spent time with him off stage described a warm, generous personality, someone quick to laugh, quick to offer support, and fiercely loyal to his friends. His hatred was theatrical, a carefully constructed performance designed to make audiences laugh, gasp, and sometimes squirm in delight. But when it came to a certain individual in Hollywood, the line between performance and personal feeling disappeared entirely. Rickles' charm and wit earned him the respect of countless peers. He had friendships that spanned decades. Frank Sinatra once famously called Rickles one of the funniest men alive, appreciating that his barbs were playful, never malicious, except perhaps for this one person. Johnny Carson welcomed Rickles on his show repeatedly, trusting that the insults would entertain without genuine animosity. Even stars who appeared to be targets understood the distinction. Rickles mocked publicly but privately. He was a loyal and considerate friend. This contrast made his hatred for one Hollywood figure all the more shocking. While he could roast anyone, the intensity of his dislike for this man went beyond humor. It was personal. Observers often noted a subtle tension when these two crossed paths. The friendly jabs that Rickles dispensed so effortlessly with others gave way to sharp, cutting remarks directed at this one individual. In private, he expressed open frustration, recounting incidents and slights that others might dismiss as trivial, but which had clearly wounded him deeply. Understanding Rickles requires seeing both sides of his persona, the comic who could make the world laugh at anyone, and the private man who could hold a grudge so intense that it shaped his interactions and decisions. This duality makes the story of his hatred all the more compelling. In Hollywood, where rivalries are common but often fleeting, Rickles' feud stands out as something almost primal, a deep, unwavering dislike that persisted despite fame, friendships, and time. It was a reminder that beneath the laughter, even the funniest people can feel profoundly human emotions: anger, frustration, and, in rare cases, true hate. As we explore the origins of this remarkable grudge, we'll uncover not just the moments that fueled it, but the personality traits and incidents that made this feud unlike any other in Hollywood history. From the first sparks to the peak of animosity, Don Rickles' relationship with the man he hated offers a rare glimpse into the personal side of a legend whose career was defined by making others squirm, and sometimes, just sometimes, being completely serious about who he disliked. Every feud has an origin, and the one Don Rickles held was no exception. While he famously mocked countless stars, this grudge wasn't born from career rivalry, public humiliation, or a misunderstood joke. It began with a deeply personal incident. Sources suggest that the initial spark came from a professional disagreement that quickly spiraled. Rickles, known for his sharp instincts and high standards, was affronted by behavior that he interpreted as arrogance, betrayal, or a breach of trust. Whereas most slights were shrugged off or turned into material for his comedy, this particular incident left a mark that would not fade. At the heart of the conflict was a clash of personalities. Rickles thrived on spontaneity, improvisation, and a deep respect for wit and humility. His target, however, exuded traits that triggered Rickles's ire, entitlement, stubbornness, and a certain coldness that contrasted starkly with Rickles's energy. The tension between them wasn't merely professional, it was deeply personal. According to accounts from colleagues and insiders, even casual interactions were strained. While Rickles could charm and entertain nearly anyone, this individual seemed impervious to humor, respectful discourse, or the give and take Rickles valued in friendships. The industry quickly noticed the tension. Hollywood insiders whispered about heated exchanges, cold shoulders, and moments when Rickles's legendary wit was edged with genuine venom. Those who observed interactions between the two reported a palpable discomfort, even an underlying fear, that was rare in Rickles' otherwise playful career. Unlike the friendly banter he shared with other stars, these encounters carried a weight, a seriousness that everyone sensed but few dared to comment on publicly. Stories from backstage and on set suggest that the feud intensified during collaborative projects. Differences over creative control, perceived slights during production, and personal insults that weren't intended as jokes all compounded the animosity. Rickles, usually quick to forgive and move on, instead allowed the grudge to grow. He shared his frustrations privately with trusted friends, revealing a side of him the public rarely saw. A man who held grudges seriously and allowed past offenses to shape his view of a colleague for years. It's important to note that this hatred wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. Rickles' insults toward this individual were not simply part of a routine comedic act. They were pointed, loaded with personal disdain, and unmistakable to those who knew the context. The public may have laughed, unaware of the depth of feeling, but for those behind the curtain, the difference was crystal clear. By the time the feud reached the peak of its intensity, it had become more than personal, it was legendary. Hollywood, a world that thrives on gossip and rivalry, watched as Rickles' restrained fury and cutting humor combined to create a private war that would outlast many of the friendships, projects, and casual conflicts surrounding him. This feud wasn't just a chapter in his career. It was a defining aspect of his private life, one that revealed the complex, passionate, and deeply human side of a man who otherwise spent decades making everyone else laugh. By the height of the feud, the divide between Don Rickles and his target was impossible to ignore. Unlike his usual playful roasts, which could charm or amuse almost anyone, Rickles' interactions with this man were tense, biting, and unmistakably personal. Those who witnessed their encounters described an edge to Rickles' words that could cut deeper than any scripted insult, leaving observers in shock. Public appearances often masked the animosity, but close colleagues knew better. At award shows, television interviews, and social gatherings, subtle cues, the sharpness of Rickles' tone, a sidelong glance, a dismissive gesture, betrayed his true feelings. Friends who had spent years with him noted a rare vulnerability, a grudging, unrelenting anger that refused to be tempered by time or circumstance. Unlike his routine humor, which was generous in its timing and clever in its execution, this hatred was raw, immediate, and intense. There were moments that became iconic among those who worked closely with him. On set, minor disagreements could escalate quickly, and Rickles' target often bore the brunt of his wit sharpened with personal contempt. Behind closed doors, the insults were not framed as jokes. They were cutting observations meant to assert dominance, express frustration, or simply let the other person know how deeply he disapproved. Letters, backstage conversations, and private accounts reveal that Rickles held nothing back, exposing a rare glimpse of true emotion that contrasted sharply with his public persona. This intense dislike affected Rickles personally, too. Friends noted that he would occasionally brood over interactions, replaying moments in his mind and allowing them to fuel ongoing irritation. For a man whose life revolved around laughter, it was unusual to harbor such a persistent private animosity. Yet the feud shaped his behavior and influenced the way he interacted with others, highlighting how even the most comedic individuals carry complex emotional baggage. Hollywood, ever aware of its behind-the-scenes dynamics, began to take notice. While most of Rickles' targets accepted their role in his comedic act with good humor, this man stood out. Colleagues speculated on the reasons for Rickles' enduring anger, trying to understand what made this feud so different. Unlike casual rivalries that fade over time, this grudge persisted, demonstrating the depth of Rickles' capacity for both humor and genuine human emotion. At its peak, the feud was more than a professional clash. It became a symbol of Rickles' private intensity. It reminded everyone who knew him that beneath the quick wit and infectious laughter existed a man who felt profoundly and held on to slights with remarkable persistence. The height of the hatred, marked by sharp words, tense encounters, and private grievances, revealed a side of Don Rickles rarely seen, a man capable of unfiltered disdain, a stark contrast to the charming performer adored by millions. As the years passed, many Hollywood feuds mellowed with time, but Don Rickles' grudge remained. Even as his career reached legendary status and his health and age imposed natural limitations, the tension between him and his target persisted. While Rickles rarely spoke openly about this individual in interviews, subtle references, humor-laden anecdotes, and comments to close friends revealed that the resentment had not entirely faded. The feud offers a powerful lesson about human emotion. Rickles, known for his ability to make millions laugh, reminds us that even the funniest and most charming individuals can harbor deep, lasting anger. This was not a fleeting irritation or a petty jealousy. It was a profound personal dislike rooted in principle, personality clashes, and perhaps a perceived betrayal. Unlike his public jabs, which were carefully crafted and timed for entertainment, this hatred existed independently of audience approval or professional necessity. For fans and historians, the feud adds a layer of complexity to Rickles' legacy. It demonstrates that he was not just a comic genius, but a man who experienced and expressed strong emotions, including anger and frustration, in ways that were rarely visible to the outside world. The contrast between his public persona and private sentiments deepens our understanding of him, not merely as a performer, but as a person with a fully human range of emotions. Even in his final years, Rickles maintained his sharp wit, but those close to him knew that some past grievances still lingered. Unlike the playful rivalries that fade with time, this one endured, a reminder of the intensity of his feelings and the depth of his personal convictions. It also illustrates a larger truth about Hollywood. Behind the glamour, laughter, and applause, real human emotions, both positive and negative, drive much of the industry's history. Ultimately, the story of Don Rickles' hatred serves as both cautionary tale and fascinating insight. It reminds us that even legends are shaped by personal conflicts, and that beneath the laughter lies a human heart capable of deep, sometimes surprising emotion. Hollywood may remember Rickles for his humor, his legendary roasts, and his fearless performances, but those who look closer see the rare glimpse of a man who could love, entertain, and yes, even truly hate, with a conviction that few others could match.